Good evening, everyone. We'll call the meeting to order and we'll begin with our land acknowledgement statement. We acknowledge that the ground on which we live is the traditional territory of Caldwell First Nation, of the Three Fires Confederacy, and the original people of Point Pelee and Pelee Island, and its surrounding lands and waters, and that of the Huron-Wendat and Wyandot peoples. We recognize and respect the First Nations who are stewards of the land and waters of Turtle Island and who have embraced this stewardship since time immemorial. We would also like to acknowledge contributions of other nearby First Nation communities and all original people across Turtle Island. We'll now have a moment of silent reflection, followed by the playing of our national anthem. Please stand for the playing of the national anthem. Okay, if we can get an adoption of the agenda for the July 8th, 2025 regular council meeting. Moved by Councilor Riccio Spagnolo, support by Councilor Carrick. All in favor? And that carries. Any disclosures of pecuniary interest? There are none. Can we get an adoption of the minutes of the public planning meeting and the regular meeting of council held June 24th, 2025? Moved by Councilor Burns, support by Councilor Riccio Spagnolo. All in favor? And that carries. Mayor's comments for tonight. I want to start by reflecting on what a wonderful weekend we had here in the town of LaSalle. We had our ribbon cutting ceremony at the Rotary Circle, which was very well attended. We had a fantastic night market, which seems like it's a growing success every single time we have one. It gets bigger and bigger and people love coming out. And then we followed it up with our first large-scale event at the Loop at LaSalle Landing, which was our Canada Day 2025 event with a drone show, and it was a massive celebration and a huge success. It was incredible to see the event center as well as the newly opened Rotary area being used together, and it really made the area come alive. And I think we've estimated, and we could be a little wrong off this, but we're thinking there was probably almost about 5,000 people who attended that event, which is amazing for our first event there. And it really was a powerful moment for our community. So I want to thank administration again for pulling it off in a short amount of time as well. I know we didn't have a lot of leeway into planning this event this year, but I think we did a wonderful thing for our community. I think we showed our pride in being Canadian, and I just want to say thank you to everyone because I think it was a fantastic weekend in the town of LaSalle. A few reminders and updates for our residents. Front Road storm sewer reconstruction work begins next week. So on Front Road from Beaumier to Riem, we will see some major traffic delays, but those delays will probably come closer to August. And so we encourage our drivers to begin planning alternate routes or leave extra time. Free recreational swims at the LaSalle Outdoor Pool are daily from 2 to 4. Registration is recommended to ensure your spot. Cooling centers during heat advisories in LaSalle offer several of those. So we have the splash pad at the Vollmer Complex, we have the Vollmer Center, we have the Town Hall Atrium in the Essex County Library, we have LaSalle Outdoor Pool, and our new Rotary Circle water feature at LaSalle Landing. Also a reminder to our senior active living group programs for 55 plus. We have weekly learning and activity sessions on Tuesdays and Wednesdays. We have weekly pole walking on Thursdays. And then we have the upcoming Stratford Festival day trip to see Annie at the Festival Theatre on September 16th, which they can register through Shoreline Charters and Tours. For more information, you can visit the LaSalle Senior Active Living page on our website or reach out to someone at the Vollmer or any of the other locations if they need to speak to someone in person. So I just want to thank everyone again for the continued support and participation in making our community a vibrant, fun place to be, and let's keep that momentum going. We have no public meetings in our hearings, so we're going into our presentations and delegations, starting off with our 2024 annual report, which is for the LaSalle Police Service. So, review that one. In the past, the mayors went over and sat with the chief and presented this report, and we've decided to do it a little bit different. So I'm just going to do a quick intro, and then I will be turning it over to our chief and our deputy to present. So I'm pleased to take a few moments to introduce the 2024 LaSalle Police Service Year in Review. This past year has been one of transition and progress for our police service. Last July, we welcomed Chief Pierce to LaSalle, and with his official swearing in taking place in, I think it was September, if I'm right. I feel like it was.
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay. While he's only been with us for part of the year, both he and Deputy Chief Woods have already made a strong impact, bringing a new lens to the organization, identifying where we can grow and putting the right processes in place to support our long-term development and improvement. I also want to take a moment to sincerely thank Chief Davies, who retired late last year. His years of leadership and dedication to our community have helped shape the strong foundation we continue to build on today. Throughout 2024, our officers have continued to go above and beyond, not only in keeping our community safe, but also in building positive relationships through community policing. We've welcomed several new officers and launched a number of new initiatives, from enhanced traffic enforcement and youth engagement programs to increased mental health support and expanded community outreach efforts. Our officers have remained visible, approachable, and committed, and that's something we can all be proud of. On behalf of the LaSalle Police Service Board, I want to thank each and every member of our police service for their professionalism, adaptability, and unwavering service to the people of LaSalle. I'd also like to take the opportunity to thank the LaSalle Police Service Board, which consists of Councillor Regis Spagnolo, Dan Allen, Marie Campagna, and Morris Browse, and Board Secretary Tanya Mayu. Your dedication, insight, and hard work behind the scenes play a vital role in the success of our police service, and I'm grateful for your continued service. So thank you to everyone. With that, I'm going to turn things over to Chief.
Thank you, Mayor Meloche. The size of this document, if I make the image fit to screen, you're not going to be able to read some of the text, so I'm going to keep it at this size if you don't mind. This is going to be a highlight of the report. The report's quite detailed, and I don't want, in the interest of time, don't want to cover everything, so I'm going to skip ahead. In 2024, at the end of 2024, we refreshed our vision, mission statement, and values. We spoke to our members, and we believe this adequately reflects sort of our purpose and mission in the town of LaSalle. We also reorganized our organizational chart to allocate resources and primarily for supervision reasons to have an equal distribution of people and responsibilities within 3 distinct branches. So I'd like to point out, sometimes when people call our emergency communications center, they think just total number of calls. Our dispatchers handled just over 30,000 phone calls both in and out last year. This is actually slightly underrepresented because for a few months we made a small change in technology, and we didn't, for about 3 months, didn't adequately capture the full extent. So that we have done at least 30,000 calls. It's likely a couple of thousand higher. Total police calls and fire calls for 2024 were 11,327. And you'll see how that breaks down here. We had 7,580 reactive calls, which is a 12% increase from last year. So that's citizens calling, requiring a police response. And then our proactive calls, that's officers conducting, proactive patrols, not including traffic stops, is 2,785, which is a 5% reduction from the previous year. LaSalle Fire had 589 calls, Kingsville Fire had 373 calls. So that gives us our calls at 11,327. Right here, you'll note these are the priorities for police only in terms of priority 1 is emergency response, priority 5 is sort of the least emergent type of response, and that's the breakdown of those calls there. From a records management point of view, we have 3 records management people. They handle freedom of information requests, criminal checks, fingerprints, pardon requests, FOI, that kind of thing. They also do a lot of things with regards to processing tickets, processing criminal briefs, provincial offenses briefs, and so some of their stats are provided here. We arrested 137 people and laid 311 charges. In terms of releasing those people, 19 were released unconditionally, which means they were not charged criminally. 7 were released on scene, which is called an appearance notice. So there's no conditions placed on them other than they have to go to court and be fingerprinted. Released by undertaking means we brought them to the station and released them on conditions. Still need to go to court and get fingerprinted. And then 20 of them were held for bail, which means we don't release. It's up to a justice of the peace to release. This page refers to crime stats regarding numbers of calls for service and the number of resulting charges from those calls. I won't go, if you have questions later, I'll take them, but I won't go through all the data on that. Of note, we had a 20% reduction in motor vehicle collisions, which pleases me. Still 287 are a lot for a small town, but a 20% reduction is trending in the right direction. These stats simply show when collisions occur, and I want to draw your attention to the weather and road conditions. You will see that the bulk of collisions occurring are when it's clear and when it's dry. So a lot of people think bad weather creates collisions. I think bad weather contributes to some collisions, but ultimately driver error is responsible for probably almost 100% of all collisions. It's very rarely a mechanical defect that causes a collision. So I just wanted to point out that weather conditions, people are getting into crashes when it's nice out. I thought this would be interesting to show us the top 5 collision intersections in LaSalle. You'll notice that the number of collisions is not significantly different as we roll through the top 5, but the number of people injured and the number of people involved and the number of injuries is available there. So our criminal investigations division investigated 93 unique occurrences, and then with that came 159 reports. You'll see the number below that, which is 412. That is the number of reports generated from a single major investigation that's has been parsed out of the 159 is not included in that, if that makes sense. The rest of the numbers are available if you'd like just to see there. There's a list of notable investigations. I won't go through each unless you have particular questions. I can't release a lot of detail on them, but I wanted to show a highlight of some of the things that are occurring either in LaSalle or by LaSalle residents in neighboring jurisdictions. We have a joint bail compliance unit with Windsor Police, and so that team conducted 255 bail compliance checks. 20 of them were in LaSalle and LaSalle residents, resulting in 3 arrests in LaSalle. And so we monitor, obviously Windsor's a much larger municipality than us, but we monitor 3 offenders daily that are on conditions that require daily monitoring. We also, this might be a surprise to some people, but we have 13 registered sex offenders in LaSalle. We had 2 left in 2024 to reside elsewhere, and 1 entered LaSalle. So these are people that we keep tabs on a regular basis. Traffic enforcement, you'll see that we laid 1,098 traffic charges. We cautioned 1,900 other drivers for a total of 2,998 traffic enforcement actions in 2024. You'll also note that commercial motor vehicle joint forces operations substantially increased in terms of vehicles taken out of service from the year prior, 31 versus 0 the year prior, and many more charges. Impaired driving occurrences, you'll see, and I'll bring it to your attention, in 2023 we had 18 occurrences, and in 2024 we had 87. That is people calling the police, suggesting or believing there's an impaired driver on the road, and it may not be the case. So we may pull the driver over and it turns out they're just tired, or they were swerving for another reason. So that's the number of phone calls to us regarding impaired drivers. That doesn't equate to impaired drivers on the road. Our community outreach and support team continued to have stable numbers in 2024. You'll see that there aren't major changes there. This unit is incredibly helpful to us because it diverts time and attention that people who have complex issues now get someone that is capable of supporting them through a crisis rather than having a uniformed officer deal with them. And it allows our uniformed officers to return to regular duties. Our community resource officer, formerly called a community liaison officer, this is just a snapshot of the events that officer has been to in 2024. Incredibly useful for us, and also our media relations officer and social media officer. So we had a transition from Constable Terry Segan to Constable Elena Atkins in 2024, and that's why you see both their pictures there. Recruiting, we had, I think we hired 6 or 7 police officers last year. And of those 6, 90 people applied. We interviewed 41. And so when you look at dispatchers, we had more than double the amount of people apply to be a dispatcher. This is a trend we've been seeing across the province for a few years now, and we're getting lower applicants in the policing sector than, I would say, the 10-year period prior. We're lucky because we're still getting quality candidates to select from that 90, but that 90 number is fairly low. Interestingly, we posted a records job this year that's not in this annual report. We had 337 people apply for one job. So we're seeing strong applicants in the civilian side, but not so much in the sworn side. With respect to seasonal activities, I'd like to point out that most of the marine hours come as a result of overtime because we can't pull 2 members to staff the boat because we'll be short on the road. And you'll see that in bicycle patrol and UTV patrol, our numbers are dramatically down, especially in bicycle patrol for the same reason. To pull resources and go below minimum staffing we are not able to do that. So we have to, these hours are overtime hours. Training, with the change in the Community Safety and Policing Act, we started to ramp up training in the fall of last year. So we had 657 training opportunities. And here are a list. So this list is not 657, but 657 people went on training. So some people did multiple training. There was required training through the CSPA. And this is a list of all the training that our people took. So not every officer or member took all of this training, but it just gives you a snapshot on what kind of training our members are doing on a yearly basis. Use of force occurrences, we had 9. 6 of them involved discharging a firearm. All 6 of them were to euthanize an animal following a collision. And then we had 1 officer point a firearm to effect an arrest, and the same with CEW displaying. We didn't have to taser anyone, so taser is the brand name, or rather the colloquial name for a conducted energy weapon. We had 2 occurrences where officers displayed them in order to effect arrest, did not have to actually deploy that weapon. So there's two types of complaints. A member of the public can complain to the Law Enforcement Complaints Agency. It used to be called the Office of the Independent Review Director. The name changed. And so in 2024, we had 7 complaints. We received 7 complaints. 3 of them were screened out by LECA, which means they didn't deem them worthy of being investigated. 1 was investigated and found to be unfounded. 1 was unsubstantiated. 1 was resolved by mediation, and 1 is continuing, or was continuing it by the time of the year-end report. Chief's complaints are complaints that are initiated by the Chief of Police. We had 2 last year. 1 was substantiated, extremely minor. The other one indicates it's continuing. It has been resolved and found to be unsubstantiated, but that occurred in 2025. We had 0, as you can see, historically, we've had 0 involvement with the Special Investigations Unit, and I hope that will continue. In 2024, we created our first ever public order unit to fall in line with Ontario Regulation 392.23. And so this is just a quick photo of some members that took that training. The next several pages, I won't go into detail, but are the previous strategic plan's goals and the outcomes from that. I'm happy to take questions at the end if you'd like, but there are several pages here that I won't go into. It's available. This will be available online after this meeting, and subject to any questions from you folks. And the last thing is for this report is the cost of policing. So salary and benefits were over budget by $308,000 for the following reasons. We had staffing shortages. We have 3 members on long-term disability, 1 member medically accommodated, 3 members on maternity leave, 4 members took parental leave, and we also had a variety of injuries. This includes the overlap of hiring 5 members to replace 5 retiring members in advance. So there's a bit of an overlap in salary. This was approved by the board, and then overtime for a major complex death investigation. I'll scroll down here to the very bottom. Some of the analysis identified that we have some underfunded budget lines that are contractually obligated, and so we will address those in future budgets. Administration was over budget by $80,000 to address some technology deficits. I'll note that our technology, our IT budget is $107,000. I was doing a comparison earlier today, and another service that's smaller than ours has a budget of $201,000. So we need to address that budget line in future budgets. Personnel costs were over budget by about $62,000, primarily due to training requirements and the increased cost of uniforms and equipment. To give you an idea, to buy a body armor vest is $1,400 per officer. And so with hiring, I think it was 7 people in 2024, we have to buy them all uniforms and guns and things of that nature. Facility costs were under budget by $2,000. Vehicles and equipment were under budget by $11,000. Program costs were over by $42,000, primarily as a result of increased costs for court services. So we pay Windsor Police for court services, and we also had a decrease in grant funding in that regard, about $7,000. And then revenue is higher than anticipated by $22,000. So this represents roughly a 4.9% increase higher than budgeted. And that is the annual report, subject to any questions.
Thank you very much. Members of council. Councillor Riccio-Spagnuolo.
Thank you. Through you to the chiefs, thank you very much for a very detailed report. It was very thought out and excellent with all the stats, which is nice, so then our residents can see how busy you guys are and how much you're involved in the community and how much all the calls that you take and that you do. I think it's exceptional. I also want to note that it's wonderful to see the ride programs that you guys continue to do, as well as all the other activities that your police are present in our community, which is nice. It shows to our LaSalle residents that your presence is there. If there's a question or a request, that they can always just come to you and you're reliable, and that you're just someone that they can always turn to, which is great. I also noted that it's wonderful to see that all the training hours that the officers are keeping up with their training regulations. So I think that's all great. So thank you very much for exceptional leadership from the both of you, and I think the report is great.
Thank you. Councillor Reno.
Thank you, Your Worship. I also would like to thank you for the report. You know, a lot of times throughout the year, numbers get thrown around and questions get made. And I know that I can always come to you guys, and you've always been very, very proactive, and you've always been very eager to share the facts. Aside from that completely, I wanted to thank you for your involvement at our Canada Day celebration. I saw more officers than I've seen in a long time with boots on the ground and talking to people and talking to kids and bending down and communicating. I think that presence is part of your success story and will continue to be. So thank you for continuing that trend in LaSalle, and keep doing what you do.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? There being none, the recommendation is that the 2024 LaSalle Police Service Annual Report, as presented by myself and the Chair of LaSalle Police Service Board and Michael Pierce, our Chief of Police, be received for information. Moved by Councillor Rucci-Spagnolo, support by Councillor Burns, all in favor, and that carries unanimously. Thank you very much. We can move now into our staff reports and correspondence for council's action. Item 1 is a request for Special Olympics Ontario for facility use at no cost. And we have 2 presenters. Yeah, okay. So we'll go with our Director of Culture and Recreation, Ms. Finero.
Thank you. Good evening, Your Worship and members of council. The report before you is regarding a request from Special Olympics Ontario to use the event center at no charge for a pickleball tournament in which Special Olympics Ontario will receive the proceeds. As council is aware, we do have a policy regarding fee waiving related to the use of town facilities, and it does state that fees shall not be waived either in part or in full. While Special Olympics Ontario is a worthwhile cause, as with many other requests that we've had that have come before council, council will be aware that the town typically has approximately 40 charities, nonprofits, or community groups that host events on town property annually or in town facilities, and each of those are worthwhile causes. We do regularly receive requests to support these types of events, either through fee waiving, donations, or in-kind sponsorships. And supporting every event would have a significant impact on the town's budget and our overall fiscal objectives. So the recommendation tonight is that we do charge the fees in accordance with the fee bylaw. And I do believe that we do have a delegate here to speak this evening.
Marjorie? Hi, come on forward. I was looking for Lisa as well, but I didn't see her, so, okay. So you have 5 minutes for your presentation.
Hi, my name is Marjorie Sacklow. I am here on behalf of the Law Enforcement Torch Run, hoping to host the Pickleball for a Cause here in the town of LaSalle. LaSalle has recently put together 6 great outdoor courts on Front Road. Those would also be an option to host Pickleball for a Cause. LaSalle Pickleball Association, as well as the Law Enforcement Torch Run, and students at Villanova would all volunteer their time and efforts to host this in the community. Pickleball for a Cause would not be for fantastic pickleball players. It would be for community members, people new to the game. Pickleball is also added to the Special Olympics for those athletes for 2025. In order to make it happen, the Law Enforcement Torch Run does need a donation of a host facility. Outdoors is more than acceptable. As a resident of LaSalle and a member of the LaSalle Pickleball Association, I think it would be great if we could host it here.
Okay, thank you. Members of council, do you have questions or comments? Councillor Renham?
Yes. First off, thank you for coming out. We get a lot of requests, and I know that a lot of requests, and that's why we've had to come up with a policy. We have a pickleball association in LaSalle that is trying to raise funds to help better the pickleball sport, and they're hosting a tournament, and I don't believe we've waived any fees for them. They haven't come before council. That being said, I do have a bit of a soft spot for the Torch Run. I was able to run in my first year of council. I attended last year. I attended the DIP. I think the population that you guys or your group benefits is a very important group in our community. I can't see going against policy to donate the in-kind. However, if you were to move forward, We do have discretionary funds at council. I personally have not asked for anything from those funds in the past. I would be willing, if we were successful in starting this, I would be willing at a future council meeting to donate back to their charity to help you with seed money, because I understand that you need that cash. So that being said, I can't go against the recommendation, and I would deny it if it comes to a vote.
Thank you. Councillor Riccio Spagnolo?
Thank you, through you. There's so many charities and organizations that use our event center and our resources here in LaSalle, myself included, for several events that we've hosted with different organizations I'm part of. I would love to be able to support yourself and other organizations, but with doing that, we're setting a precedence for everyone to think that they can get a little bit of a donation from us or fees waived. The other option, I do like that you're thinking of using the outdoor courts. I think that's a great option. The other option I was thinking is perhaps a sponsor to sponsor the fees of the event center, and then their name and their logo and everything would be recognized. I know a lot of great people in our community or even beyond that would probably want to assist with you with that. So that could be an avenue, but to go against the policy would be setting us up for failure, unfortunately. So I'm really sorry, but unfortunately I can't support this.
Councillor Carrick?
Again, same thing. Most unfortunate, but there are 40 other nonprofits and other organizations too that we would have to do the same thing for. So it puts us in a very tough spot, tugs at our heartstrings and everything. But at the same time, we can appreciate where we're coming from too, I hope, that understanding what we have to deal with too as a whole. And it's unfortunate, but I will not be able to support that this time either. Thank you.
Councillor Burns?
How much money are we talking here to administration? Obviously, we requested hours. How much an hour? How many hours? It's not in your report, or at least if it's in it, I missed it. So I would apologize if I missed it.
Thank you for the question, Councillor Burns. The event center is typically rented for an event, so it's rented for the entire day, and the cost for that is $1,386.
Okay, thank you. Again, because we have the policy and we set it for, don't want to belabor it, but I cannot support your request as well.
I have nothing to add. I agree with what's everything.
Motion then to deny the request, sadly.
No, that's okay. I agree with what's been said, but I also agree with what Councillor Reno said about we do have that small fund where we can support certain initiatives through the year. It's more of a one-time thing. We've done it for other events in the past that have brought tourism to the region. Is that this may be a one-time where we could use those funds for this, even a partial use of it, maybe not the full cost. That is something I'd be willing to entertain, but not going against our policy. So if anyone wants, Councillor Burns?
I think there's two issues. I think we should deny the request. And I think if it's in order, then Mr. Councillor Reno can make his request. Thank you.
So I'm going to call the original one question then, with the recommendation put before us was to deny the fee waiver. So you're moving that, and support to deny the fee waiver, Councillor Riccio Spagnolo's support. All in favor? And that carries. And did you want to follow up with a motion?
Okay, I would be willing to make a motion that if the event does go forward, that we make a donation from council fees of $1,000.
Okay, moved by Councillor Reno, support by Councillor Burns. All in favor? And that carries.
Thank you for your support.
Too fast, sorry. Thank you. Have a good night. Moving on to item 2, our request to purchase municipally owned property at the rear of 1805 Todd Lane. We will first go to our legal counsel, Mr. Dedault, who will present the report, and following that, we will have our delegation.
Good evening, Madam Mayor and members of council. The item before you tonight concerns a request to purchase a portion of municipally owned land that's located behind 1805 Todd Lane, specifically that's part of what is currently 5700 Malden Road. The property in question is zoned recreation, or the RE zone, and it currently forms part of a naturalized kind of green space along adjacent to Turkey Creek there. I do reference in the report a Schedule A, but I don't see it on the report, so I believe council is generally aware of the area. It just basically shows an outline of the land behind 1805 Todd Lane, so I believe we're familiar with where that location is, but if there's some questions, we can figure a way to display that if needed. Some key facts just to highlight initially here. This is not the first time that we've received a request from the property owners. It's been raised multiple times over the last several years. I know different members of administration have dealt with it in the past prior to myself. As I understand it, the purpose of this request is simply to extend the private rear yard of 1805 Todd Lane. It's not for development or public use. It's for the continued private owner, or to extend the private ownership. It's administration's position that council denies this request. Our rationale is threefold. First, it is a municipal asset that should remain in the town's land bank. Number 2, it is zoned for recreational and naturalized public use. And 3, it serves a broader public interest as an open space adjacent to that Turkey Creek watercourse. So I'll just go through a couple of items just for your consideration. The first one is zoning and land use planning considerations. Given that the land is zoned recreation, which supports uses such as community gardens, parks, or passive green space, so selling this land for private yard expansion would be inconsistent with that zoning. It would undermine our strategic planning initiatives, and it could potentially limit the future community and environmental use of that space. Going on to financial and legal considerations. So to this date, there's been no purchase price brought forth from the property owners in terms of an offer, so we would have to go through an exercise to determine that in terms of what the fair market value of that land is. Given that it is recreational land, we don't typically sell that, so there's not some immediate one that we can pull from. Obviously, we have town center nearby with developments going on. We have alleys that we know roughly what some land costs are going for. Malden Road, we have appraisals going for that as well for recreation land, or sorry, for residential land. So we have some numbers, but we would like to formalize that with the property owner if that is the direction that council wishes to go. Obviously, any transfers would need a reference plan, it would need a rezoning application, and that would all be, I believe, borne by the property owner in question here. In terms of any future gain to potential tax revenue, it would be, in our view, minimal. Rear yard additions usually don't increase property tax significantly. It's more or less frontage that really drives that from an impact perspective. So ultimately, the broader impact, if council approves this request, it could set a precedent from similar asks from other residents that abut green space or recreational space. And again, administration doesn't want to show, wants to show a commitment to that green space and preserving that land for public use. So for those reasons, the recommendation before you tonight is to retain those lands in our ownership. And that ensures that we control our green space. It aligns with the zoning and strategic principles, and it protects future recreational and environmental opportunities for the broader community.
Thank you. We do have a registered delegation, which is Mr. Hodgson, if he'd like to come forward. I'm just going to have you, turn on the microphone there. Thank you.
Thank you to the mayor and the members of council for having me here tonight. My family and I moved here 18 years ago and noticed that property ownership, everybody east of us to Elmdale owned the property to the creek line. So I'm thinking that was a little bit strange, but I'm here to ask for the possibility of extending that lot behind my house. I don't want it all the way to Malden Road, just behind my house from the fence line. I'm not a rich man, but I'm looking at retirement's coming up and maybe putting a little workshop back there behind the house, so I need a little bit more land to do that. And I've watched, for the past 18 years that I've been there, the town paying contractors to maintain the land, which, if you're talking about dollars and cents, I think that's a significant investment in that property that, hey, I'll mow it. So, I guess that's all I got to say. Leave it up to you people at this point, so
Okay, thank you very much.
thank you, guys.
Members of council, do you have any questions or comments for administration about what's been presented? Councillor Reno?
Yes, to administration. I just want to get a clearer picture of how that piece of property has become the way it has. It's my understanding that that was originally a home at one point that was torn down for future development like the roundabout. My question, I guess, my first question is, that piece has now been zoned differently. It's no longer a residential piece. What I would like to know is, with the pieces that we've used now for the roundabout, could that parcel be put back to a residential state and a home be put there? Is that even a possibility, or have we taken too much for there to be a viable option on that corner?
I guess I'll take the first question in terms of the history there. From what I understand, that was a home on the corner lot there that the town actively purchased when it went for sale back around 1999 for the purposes of improving that intersection, which ultimately became the roundabout. So we required a good chunk of that land at that point. So what's left is that kind of irregular shaped parcel that makes up 5700 Malden Road. And are you going to jump on the space for development? Okay.
Yeah, there's really no opportunity for another house in there. This really has no effect on that. There's no space to put another home there.
Any other, Councillor Carrick?
Yeah, so for you to, I guess, administration and actually the applicant. So personally, I'm okay with squaring it up, bringing it back to the creek, even with an easement or something, we need access to the backyard, to the portion. I think we could look at something like that. But I guess my concern is going from recreation to residential and understanding the full costs from start to finish through an application process, what it would actually cost. So that's not going to be cheap. So I guess the applicant needs to know that you need to be aware that it might be very expensive and might not even be an option at that point. That's what I'm saying. So again, I'm willing to look at moving it forward to square it up, and then we would leave the rest of it recreational, or plant a big flower bed, or do whatever, or welcoming sign, or thank you for visiting LaSalle, and we'll see you on the way out because you're going out of town anyways. So I would entertain something like that, as long as we maintain the portion of it and it squares up with everybody else that's down going east of you that has the opportunity to have it down to the creek, and I'm okay with that. Again, I just want it to be clear, though, you would have to the applicant, you would have to go to administration, you have to do all the work, you'll have to pay for everything, because you're the one that's buying it, not the town, if that's what we're looking at. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Councillor Reno?
Thank you. I understand that right now it's a recreational piece. If that was residential, what kind of fees, what kind of costs would we even be looking at for a piece that size in a residential area?
So when there are other land purchase requests that come in, there is kind of a step-by-step process to break that down. Where we don't have agreement with the property owner in terms of value, the first step is have an appraisal commissioned. And again, through our since I've been here, we've used Ray Bauer Appraisal Services. We've using him right now for the Malden Road expansion, so it would be the first step there, and of course, those costs would be borne by the property owner. Following that, with this specific case, we would have a rezoning application because it would have to move from, you know, recreational to residential zone, and again, I would think that the appraisal would probably drive that decision at that time. If the appraisal comes back high and it becomes, okay, I don't want to move forward with this process, then it ends there. Otherwise, we move forward with going with the rezoning application. There would have to be a reference plan that specifically describes the part, which is another added cost there. I'm not sure if you're looking for specific estimates or figures for each of these steps or not, because I can kind of give some ballparks there, but it would add up quickly before we even get into the land value, which the appraisal would ultimately determine.
There were some numbers in the report, I believe. Were there not some numbers? Or maybe it's something I came in and asked about, but just knowing that how many square feet are we talking? 11,000 square feet, is that correct?
Give or take, yeah. Yeah, and so again, on the very low end, what we sell alleys for right now is $4.50 a square foot. So over that many square feet, that is about 60,000 just the raw land value. If we go what some of the prices are in town center, which is right adjacent to there, or some of the residential developments that are, even for what we're paying along Malden Road, that $4.50 is 10% of what that cost would be.
Sure.
So you just add another zero to that, and that is just the land cost. We're not talking appraisal, reference plan, rezoning application, HST, land transfer tax, and all those. Land transfer tax, HST is based off of what that purchase price ultimately ends up being. So it's somewhere in that range, and it's a significant range. So it's hard to say at this point. Again, we haven't commissioned that appraisal. That would be step one, and then we would go from there.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? I think I'm glad this has come forward. I know you've had question for many years about this parcel of land and whether or not we could extend it. I know there was also concern that the property to your, I guess that's east of you have all been sold by the town, and I was able to confirm that those have always been in the ownership of those properties, so it wasn't municipal land that was sold to them. But if we were to go down this road, it seems the costs are very high to be able to do this. I'm not sure if this is something you're interested in pursuing or putting your time forward. We can leave that up to you. But we also did receive, and it's not part of our agenda because it came in late, but we did receive a correspondence from a member of the public who spoke about us retaining the property because of the natural nature of the piece of land and close to the waterway. And I think all members of council, I just want to confirm you did receive that correspondence as well. Yeah. So I'm going to leave it to council to determine how they want to move forward with this. There is a recommendation before us, and that recommendation was that the report of legal counsel dated June 20th, 2025 regarding the request to purchase municipally owned property at the rear of 1805 Todd Lane be received, and that council deny the request to purchase the municipally owned property at the rear of 1805 Todd Lane. That is a recommendation, but council, I'm waiting for something from you. Anyone? Councillor Carrick?
I will move the recommendation for a vote.
Moved, so you're moving the recommendation on the report. Do I have anyone who wants to support that recommendation? Support? So all in favor of the recommendation so the recommendation that I just read out, which was the council deny the request to purchase the municipally owned property at the rear of 1805 Todd Lane. So if there's no other comments on that, I'll call the question. So we have a mover and support. All in favor? Opposed? Okay. So we have moved by Councillor Carrick, support by Councillor Burns. When I called the question in favor, we have Councillor Burns and Councillor Richo Spagnolo. And opposed was Councillor Carrick and Councillor Reno. Okay. So the motion carries. Okay? Okay. So we move on to item 3, which is to regulate the setting of fires. We have our fire chief, Mr. Thiessen, who will present the report.
Thank you, Madam Mayor and members of council. I'm before you today basically to simplify or clarify the existing bylaw that we have for the setting of fire. So this covers both agricultural fires and/or campfires in our backyards. And basically, there's 3 changes. So one, following what other municipalities are doing, they're having a clause in the bylaw which references the air quality index. So Environment Canada, on a daily basis, issues an air quality index. So basically, I added a clause into the bylaw that basically says that if the air quality index is higher than 7, that we wouldn't be able to do those burns. Secondly, just for clarification, we do get a lot of calls. I'm sure that 911 dispatch also receives calls, numerous calls with respect to specifically agricultural burns with respect to, are they allowed? And the question of what is the actual wind condition that is acceptable? So I've added this clause in here to include the wind gusts. So wind as well as wind gusts to a maximum of 21 or 25 kilometers an hour, just for clarification. And in the third one is really a housekeeping issue. In the existing bylaw, we had a matrix in the back, or an appendix, that basically outlined a fee schedule for different types or different apparatus that we have. Although those were Ministry of Transportation rates, those rates change periodically and would involve changing the bylaw when those rates changed. So we've removed that matrix and just said that, or stated we were going to charge the MTO rates, so that we remove the actual rates and just reference their guidance on that. I'm available for any questions should you have them.
Councillor Carrick?
Yes, just clarification around the bylaw itself is regulate setting of fires, fire 2504, the day, whatever. So backyard barbecuing or cooking, open flame type thing, that's all under this too?
It
So
is.
just a broad stroke.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Okay, recommendations that the report of the Director of Fire Service, Fire Chief dated June 18th, 2025, which is Fire-25-04, regarding regulate the setting of fires be received, and that council repeal the existing setting of fires bylaw 7170 and adopt the revised setting of fires bylaw 2025-062 at the appropriate stage of this council meeting. Moved by Councillor Carrick, support by Councillor Reno. All in favor? And that carries. Our consent agenda has items, the correspondence items, as well as our summary reports. If there's anything anyone wants to pull out to discuss, we can. Otherwise, we can approve them together. No. So if we can get a motion to receive the consent agenda, moved by Councillor Burns, support by Councillor Richo Spagnolo. All in favor? And that carries. Committee matters, we have just the County Council highlights of the June 18th, 2025 meeting, and recommendation is to receive those unless anyone has any questions or comments. Nope. Most moved by Councillor Reno, support by Councillor Burns. All in favor? And that carries. Any questions or statements by council members? Councillor Burns.
I have 2, please. One is basically about the Vollmer. There's a resident on Malden Road. We have a ditch that backs on from Malden to the swale on the east side, and the weeds are high, and it hasn't been cut. I have the address and whatever needed. Just need to give that to administration to look after that for me. I did drive by, and the weeds somehow have been neglected. The other thing, I was at the Vollmer watching my grandchildren play baseball, and I should go more often because there's 2 things I noticed there. The parking lots are not paved, and neither is the rest of the loop road. So people riding their bikes on that loop road that goes around, there's a lot of dust, there's a lot of concern, and I just would like to see that. I know that needs to be done. It's not done, and I'd like to see that brought to budget so that we can have a price on asphalting that, and with that report, some kind of a timeline when it can be done. Because I think it's the only thing we haven't finished from the original plans. So if that can be brought forward at some time, or if somebody wants to answer it now,
Sorry,
thank you.
just, I don't, sorry,
Yeah.
a report, to come back or referred to budget?
Just refer to budgets, I think is good enough. You have enough to do now without, but at least if we have that costing, then we can look at it at budget times. Thank you.
We just want that in a formal motion, if you could, please.
Oh, to refer to budgets?
Yes, if you could
No.
put a formal motion to refer that
Yeah,
item.
I'd like to refer, then I'd make a motion to refer that item to budgets, please. And get a seconder, I'd appreciate it.
Support? All in favor? And that carries. Councilor Rena?
Thank you, Your Worship. I noticed a couple friendly faces in the audience tonight. I believe 3 council meetings ago, we voted to proceed with a by-election for the seat that was vacated with the death of Councillor Desjardins. That being said, I noticed on tonight's agenda, there is a bylaw, and so the bylaw is now here. And I think I told many people, I said, don't worry about it until the bylaw's out. And now the bylaw is going to be possibly passed tonight. And I'm just wondering if we might be able to get a small update from the clerk's department as to what some of the people who came here to hear about, if we could give them a little bit of an expectation of what comes next, maybe some dates, if you would.
Certainly. So once the bylaws adopted tonight, nominations will open, which means that starting tomorrow morning, individuals interested in registering to be a candidate for the by-election and wishing to run for this vacant seat are able to come into the clerk's department and submit their application package, their nomination package. We do have nomination packages in the office as well if you have not visited our website. So that will open tomorrow. Nominations are open until September 5th at 2 p.m. You need to be in the building by 2 p.m. on the 5th for us to accept your nomination. After that, the election voting will open. If I remember correctly, it is going to open October 10th at 10 a.m. and it will run through to October 20th at 8 p.m. So if anybody has any questions about the election or what they can do or some of the rules and regulations, we've posted a bunch of things on the website. Visit our by-election page on the website. You can also contact the Council Services Office, and we have our contact information also on the website there.
Any other questions or comments? Notices of motion? No? So I do have one. And since it's my notice of motion, I'm going to cede the chair to Councillor Carrick.
Thank you. So, Mayor Millis, you're gonna speak to your motion, so would you like to make your motion now?
Yes,
You need a
please.
seconder, right?
Yes.
Seconder right now, can I get a seconder for, okay?
So-
Councilor Rito Spagnolo, and we're all in favor.
Do I need to read the motion, right? Yes, so I have to read the motion first?
Well, I thought we were gonna get you, so you can read the motion to bring it forward.
Yes.
Yeah, Anita.
Okay. Okay, so we have a seconder and Councillor Richo Spagnolo. So Mayor Malash will review the motion
Right.
and then council can discuss.
Okay, so the notice of motion that is being put before is for frivolous, vexatious, or unreasonable requests or complaints policy. So I'm looking, whereas the town of LaSalle is committed to fair, transparent, and efficient enforcement of municipal bylaws, and whereas repeated, unfounded, or frivolous complaints made to bylaw enforcement, fire services, or other departments can place an undue burden on municipal resources, and whereas such complaints can negatively impact residents who are in full compliance with town bylaws, contributing to a sense of harassment or unfair treatment. And whereas other municipalities across Ontario have adopted formal, vexatious, or frivolous complaint policies to manage and respond to patterns of unreasonable behavior in a consistent and equitable manner. Therefore, it be resolved that council direct administration to develop a draft policy for council's consideration that outlines how the town will address and manage frivolous, vexatious, or repeated unfounded complaints. And further, that the policy include, but not be limited to, provisions on complaint intake and review procedures, criteria for identifying and responding to frivolous and vexatious complaints, the balance between proactive and reactive enforcement, confidentiality and protection of complainant and respondent information, and procedural fairness for all parties involved. And further, that bylaw enforcement staff collaborate with other relevant departments to ensure the policy includes appropriate language to address related areas, and that residents are provided with clear and understandable information regarding the town of LaSalle's bylaws. And further, that a draft policy be brought before council for review at a future meeting.
Thank you, Your Worship. So at this time, is there any questions on the motion, the notice of motion? Yes, Councilor Reno.
No, I just want to say that I will support this motion, as one thing I learned in the last 11 years with being on council is that I have very good neighbors, and I'm very thankful for the neighbors that I have. And there's probably twice as many people out there, unfortunately, that don't have very good neighbors. And I see a lot of resources being wasted on frivolous complaints, so I will support your motion.
Okay, so thank you. So I will call, any other questions? Okay, I'll call the question. All in favor? Myself included. No one opposed? That carries. Thank you. It's all yours, boss.
Okay, thank you. So we have our closed session, and we have a report out from July 8th, 2025. Council moved into closed session in accordance with Section 2392 of the Municipal Act 2001, and received information related to land located at Malden Road and Todd Lane, heard under Section 239(2-C), being proposed or pending acquisition or disposition of land by the municipality or local board, and Section 239, subsection 2F, being advice that is subject to solicitor-client privilege, including communications necessary for that purpose. We have 4 bylaws, and that's that the following bylaws be given a first, second, third reading and finally passed, and that's bylaw 2025-058, a bylaw to amend zoning bylaw number 8600, the town's comprehensive zoning bylaw as amended. 2025-060, a bylaw to authorize a by-election be held to fill the vacancy for the office of councillor. 2025-062, a bylaw to regulate the setting of fires within the town of LaSalle. And 2025-063, a bylaw to reappoint hearing officers pursuant to the administrative monetary penalties system. If I can get a mover, moved by Councillor Carrick, support by Councillor Richo Spagnolo, all in favor, and that carries. Our confirmatory bylaw 2025-066 be given a first, second, and third reading and finally passed. Moved by Councillor Reno, support by Councillor Burns, all in favor. Thank you, that carries. The scheduled meetings are listed below for July and August. Thank you for joining us in person or online. Have a good night.